Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How do you tap into your brain? How do you tap into your brain? Good morning. My name is Ann McNeil, and I am, yes, because I said so. I am the master wealth builder, helping you to build a stronger and a better life and business utilizing the Think and Grow Rich philosophy espoused by Napoleon Hill in his phenomenal book entitled Think and Grow Rich. I have been blessed to have read the book, started reading the book at 9 p.m. December 31st, 1979. And yes, I have been in this book every single week, no joke, since 1979 because of forming a mastermind group of accountability with a small group of individuals. Actually, we started with 10, and then it grew into hundreds of different individuals who mastermind every week with this philosophy. In addition to being a certified coach with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, I am excited today to talk about the brain. Napoleon Hill calls this the broadcasting and receiving station for thought, but he actually opens the principle up, talking about the fact that, uh, you know, Elmer Gates and Alexander Graham Bell and others observed that the human brain is both what we now know as a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought. But as I begin to delve into this, one of my favorite parts of this book is when Dr. Elmer Gates would sit for ideas and tap into his brain and infinite intelligence through the creative imagination to solve problems. But then in this particular principle, Napoleon Hill shares that he used the same principle with his counselors, if you will, and tapping into their brains for characteristics that he liked to develop for himself. My question for you today is how do you tap into your own brain? Well, that is the subject of the conversation today with our special guest, Mr. Gary Glass, with his own business, but also certified in this philosophy. But of course, I'm not alone. No, no, not today. I'm not alone. And so let me welcome again to our podcast my co host, Dr. Peter James, and also Galen Bingham. How are you this morning, Dr. James?
I'm doing so well, excited to be here with you all this morning. I'm a little selfish there, and I gotta tell you, I'm selfish, and I'll tell you why I'm selfish. Because in chapter 12 of Napoleon Hill's book, he says, under the right circumstances, and in a fashion that may be likened to that employed by the radio broadcasting principle, every human brain is capable of picking up thought impulses which originate in the brains of others. And I'm selfish. I'm here every Saturday because I'm selfish to try to pick up the brain thought impulses by you, Galen, and our special guest. So I apologize, but I'm going to continue to do it. I'm hoping all of you are doing well this morning. Galen, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, man. I am so looking forward to this conversation. One of the things that I am often reminded of, and the author talks about this when he says that, people are really focused on the physical. We tend to be really focused on the physical, but there are so many things that are unseen that are impacting, and the physical often is just the effect, right? So gravity, we can't see gravity, can't sense gravity, but we can sense the effect. We can't sense creativity, can't really see creativity, but we can sense the effect of creativity. And that's really kind of the foundation that this principle sits on. How do you tap into those things that are unseen, that are actually driving the physical elements that we do see? So can't wait to get into this conversation. I think our guest is the perfect person to help us dive into this deeper. So let's get into it.
All right, all right, all right. Let's do that. Our special guest today is none other than Gary Glass. So, Gary, why don't you come on and let us properly welcome you? While Gary's coming on, he started his career as a sewer cleaner, and I think that that's very important to know. However, after applying the principles researched and shared by Napoleon Hill, he made a committed decision to pursue higher education. Good morning, Gary. Welcome to the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind live this morning. How are you this morning, sir?
Oh, I'm fabulous, Ann, and thank you so much for having me. You guys have been nothing but gracious all morning, and it's just a blessing to be with you all. Thank
Yes, yes, even though you're on the west coast of the United States, for those who are saying it's a little early, trust me, he's in California. So it is just a little early this morning, but we want to thank you so very much for blessing us with your presence. And for those of you that are just joining, we are talking about the principle of the brain as a part of the 13 principles espoused by Napoleon Hill. So, Gary, what I'd like to always ask our guests, because I'm always excited to know what was your first introduction to the book, and then we'll talk about the philosophy and this principle.
Oh boy, my first introduction to the book Think and Grow Rich was through my real estate mentor, and he asked me to read it, and I started to, and boy, did I not get it. You know how it says in the book you have to be ready? Oh my goodness, you have to be ready. And it was probably another 10 years later when I was reintroduced to the book. And it was like, oh my gosh, how mind-opening, how expansive my life became after I got into the principles. And it was like a switch turned. Whoop! And off you go to the races. You can just do absolutely anything that you choose to do when you implement the success principles that Napoleon Hill wrote about his whole career, that he was introduced to by, God bless his heart, Andrew Carnegie.
Well, listen, I think for those who may be joining in this morning and thinking it's a little early, can you tell by the level of his energy that this is something that yes, yes. And if you're listening and you're not watching, he just tapped his chest, because this is when you know without a shadow of a doubt that you have taken hold to this philosophy and this principle in particular, and you are exemplifying it through your energy. Galen, your thoughts?
Yeah. This is one of those principles that once you get it, you get it. And I often say this, I'm always shocked by how it feels like someone is coming into my study, opening up my book, putting in information and actually underlining it in my handwriting, because clearly those thoughts weren't there before. But once you get it, you get it. And Gary, I can absolutely appreciate the energy and enthusiasm. I'm curious, when was the moment? Can you appreciate the moment when this became more than just a book for you? Was there a notion? Was there an idea? What was that thing that you saw happen, and you said, "Wait a second, I might need to go back and read this a couple more times."
It's so interesting you asked that, Galen, because it was, there was a definite moment, and in my own journey of my life, I was an unconscious competent. The early part of my life, I was such a drifter, just working on everybody else's goal, and just in the context of employment, I was just, where can I get the most money? That was the criteria. It wasn't what did I want to do, what did I want to build, what do I want to be, what do I want to have. It was just, where can I earn the most money? And so I had a very, oh boy, you want to hear a story?
Yeah,
You
please,
like to hear a
please.
story? Here, I was well, as you heard, I was a sewer cleaner, And so out of, when I was growing up, I grew up in the Los Angeles area, in the Burbank area, and my parents had, I'll call it, they'd moved here. My mother's parents, they were from the Ukraine from the late 1800s, and even then they were displaced, and they ended up going to Canada. Mom was born in Canada, dad was born in Alabama. They met in Burbank, and I was born in Burbank, and kind of a middle class kind of a thing, and going to school and doing all this stuff. And dad passed away before I was done with high school, and I had no clue what I wanted to do. I can remember at high school graduation being out in the football field and taking my cap off, and with my mom with me, and the guidance counselor saying, me running into the guidance counselor and asking him, well, what do I do now? Yeah, it was just ridiculous. And then over the next couple of years, I pretty much, I had no direction. And so I did nothing, went to junior college, did nothing there, barely went, barely did the work. If there was such a thing as flunking out, that could have happened, but I just didn't end up there. So I ended up becoming a fry cook, and I ended up, like you mentioned, I got into the plumbing business where I was a sewer cleaner for 6 years. And, in the sewer cleaning business, it's a very service-oriented business, right? And so in the off hours, in the evenings and on the weekends, what we would do is we would cut our team in half. And so half the team would work and be on call Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night. And if you were on call Friday night, you were on call all weekend. And then the next week, you'd only be on call Tuesday night and Thursday night, and then you'd get the weekend off. So anyway, that's really immaterial. But we go on, and I get this phone call at 2:00 in the morning, Monday morning. And this very wealthy woman down in Marina del Rey. And if you don't know the Los Angeles area, Marina del Rey is like the Beverly Hills or the Brentwood or the very highly affluent area that's right on the coast. This woman at her condo, she had a 50-foot boat dock off of her condominium patio. And we're talking early 1980s here. And at the time, that was probably the most affluent condominium that I'd ever been into. And what was happening, it's the middle of the night, and just like any apartment or any condominium, she's on effectively the ground floor. And so all of the, with the pipe, everybody that's above her, if they use any water, it's coming up in her kitchen sink. So she wanted it done now, and I don't blame her. So what does a plumber do? You go into the underground garage, and you guys have probably seen it, all the pipes up on the ceiling, right? And so you get your ladder, and you climb up your ladder, and you take your pipe wrench and you hit the pipe. And if it has a high pitch, dink, 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 there's nothing in that pipe. So that that's not the pipe with the stoppage. So you move your ladder, you go to the next pipe, and you hit that one, tink, tink, tink. Oh, that one's empty. You move your ladder, you go to the next one, clunk, clunk, clunk. Ooh, that one's full of stuff. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have the pipe in front of you this way, and you put the sewer cap on one side, and you open it, and everything flushes out, and you clean the pipe, and you go home, and everything's great. What did I do? I go to open, and I didn't have the strength. So I do exactly what I'm not supposed to do. I take my ladder, I put that sewer cap right in front of my nose, and I used all the power. I used all the power and all the strength in my legs, and I pop that sewer cap, and it just goes, and I go from pristine clean that quick. I went to dirty, gooey, smelly, just covered in goo. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that quick, I made the committed decision. I'm going back to school. I'm going to get a technical degree. I'm going to go get a job at one of the high-paying aerospace companies in the area. I'm going to get the big salary. I'm going to get the paid benefits. I'm going to get the healthcare, the dental plan, the optical. I'm going to get paid vacation, man. I'm going to get a paid vacation. And I tell you, it took me 8 years to get out of that job and to finish my education. And I got a job with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'd finished degrees. I got a bachelor's in math. I got a bachelor's in physics. I got a master's in physics. And I tell you, in looking back, you were mentioning when did I have that moment? It wasn't until years later when I was reacquainted to the book, when actually it was Robert Kiyosaki. I was a huge Robert fan for a while. He suggested it, and it had already been 10 years since my original real estate mentor, Dr. Marshall Reddick, had said, "Oh, you got to read this book. It's the best book in the world." He was a professor over at Cal State LA. He used to have his students write a paper on Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich and
Cybernetics.
Cybernetics. Yeah, Maxwell Maltz's book. Oh, such a fabulous another. And what is that book? That entire book is all about one or two chapters, and actually a little bit about the brain. A little bit about the brain, that book is. So that was I can remember, oh my goodness. And I got that book, and I'm looking back thinking, oh my gosh, I used all the principles in getting my in finishing college, in getting through, because what did I use? I used auto-suggestion so often, going from a drifter to being definite about my definite major purpose. At the time, my definite major purpose was to get that high-paying aerospace job, which I did. And how did I do it? I used the power of repetition, which is the power of autosuggestion, using my brain and using the power of autosuggestion to etch into a record what I wanted. Because I can tell you, every day I was thinking, every day throughout my college career, I'm thinking, what is this for? I'm going to go get that big job. I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. I'm going to be successful. And where did it come from? It came from that auto-suggestion where, like I say, I'm etching that groove into my brain. And what else is that repetition? That repetition, it's the mother of learning. It's the mother of memory. It's the mother of understanding. It's the mother of skill. It's the mother of mastery. And as you're growing and growing and growing yourself, it's the mother of wisdom. And as you become more and more wise about these principles, the sky's the limit. You can do absolutely anything. And I
Wow.
remember that moment, Galen. I remember when I recognized I'm an unconscious competent, or I was. And I was so grateful to realize, because then I had the recipe. I had the recipe. I knew I can do anything. And I knew that I can share this with people and that they can do anything that they choose.
Wow. Well, Ann, I got to let you back in here, but before I do, we've got such the crew developing on YouTube. Miss All Purpose Misty Campbell is joining us. Shannon Charlton, Diane King Flowers, Laura Jackson is here. Doretha Dennis is always here. Xavier Gray, Brandon Common is here, and Laverne Blackwood. QC Performing Arts Inc. is here. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video, so that you can let the algorithm know that we're hanging out here on YouTube. Wyman Winbush just popped in. He knows when the perfect timing is to pop in. Hit that thumbs up icon. And man, we are already having an amazing conversation. Miss Ann, back to you. What questions do you have? Boy, you got notes.
Listen, I just want to, for those of you that have just joined us, you are in for a treat. We're speaking today with Gary Glass, and we're speaking on the principle of the brain, infinite intelligence, subconscious mind, desire, autosuggestion, and you know the drill. Gary started his career as a sewer cleaner. And interestingly, that sewer cleaner job, thanks for the question, Galen, was the turning point for him to connect with his other self. He earned multiple degrees and several, uh, yes, yes, multiple degrees, right? He had a position in a major aerospace company. He enjoyed a high salary with excellent benefits, but within 8 years, he began a remarkable 30-year career with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And I actually came out of Pratt & Whitney myself. And as I began to read your bio days ago, actually we've connected on LinkedIn months ago, but as I began to read your bio days ago, I was reminded of my own aerospace, if you will, experience and history, and how this book was a turning point in my life. So just want to just remind everybody who you're listening to. So when you hear him go on and on, he is very excited about this philosophy and these principles. And speaking about the philosophy and the principles, we're going to ask Dr. Peter James to tee up for us and to share the 13 principles. And when we come back, Gary, you said something that was so critically important that I don't think many of us understand the steps between becoming unconscious to becoming conscious and the steps in between there. So once we come back from the video, if you would share that process, because I think it's very important for all of us to understand that we can be competent and we can be incompetent, but we can be unconscious about our competence. And that speaks to a process and a journey. So Dr. Peter James is going to share, and then we'll be right back. Now, in the meantime, for those of you that's listening, like Galen said, please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and McNeil YouTube, but also please consider clicking that bell and sharing this on your social media with others, because you can already tell just his insight and his energy is going to be very, very, very contagious for all of us for the next few minutes we have left. All right, Dr. Peter James.
Yeah, thank you so much there, Ann. What a phenomenal story that we're hearing from Gary. And what's interesting is that a lot of his mentors, a lot of his advisors were telling him to read, not just to read, but to go back and read, Think and Grow Rich. Go to read, Think and Grow Rich. And we are becoming less and less of a society of readers. So I encourage those of you who are listening and watching, ask yourself, how do I need to level up? What are some of the ways I can level up? Reading is one of the best things, and not just reading anything, but reading great books that will help you get to your next level, such as Think and Grow Rich. If you have never dove into this book, today may be your day. And we'll start by giving you this video that definitely gives an overview of Think and Grow Rich. Give it a listen.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the Mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of Step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right, all right, all right. You've heard it all here. We're listening to and interviewing today our very special guest, Mr. Gary Glass. And again, Gary began a remarkable 30-year career with NASA. We talked about his background. He's contributed to 3 spacecraft launch teams, and delivered hardware that now travels throughout the solar system. So, Gary, you mentioned something before we went to break, and we want to welcome everybody back. You mentioned something about you were unconscious. If you would go back to that and share the steps between being competent and being unconsciously competent, please.
Yeah, you bet. You know what? It goes directly to, I'll call them 3 steps that Napoleon Hill highlights throughout almost all of his writings. And people acknowledge Think and Grow Rich as being his, his capstone, his foundational work. I mean, this book, it's the most published book in the world. There's over 200 million copies of this that has been published because it is the basis of success. And if you really want to study success, if you really want to be successful, you have to study it. You have to, and it says right in the book, not only you can't just read it, you have to study it, you have to digest it, You have to really meditate. And I tell you, there's so much meat in almost every single sentence of the book that there are things well, let me get back to those three steps before I jump ahead. The three steps that he almost always suggests. You have to know what you want. And that was the first thing. After I had my plumbing experience, I instantly knew what I want. You have to make a plan to go get it. And then you have to get into action. And when I first heard those steps, oh, how easy. And that's where the commitment comes. That's where the persistence comes. That's where so many of the other principles that Napoleon Hill writes about need to become highlighted, because it's not only do you need to, on one of the pages in the decision chapter, or in the desire chapter, you've got to decide what you want most. And what I'd suggest, and for those that have already decided, what I would suggest to you as a part of your auto-suggestion process, write your desire on a goal card. Carry it with you every single day. When you wake up in the morning, read it a few times. At lunchtime, read it a few times. Before you go to bed at night, read it a few times. So there's a first step. Then the second step that Napoleon would suggest is decide exactly what you're willing to give in order to get what you want. Napoleon will say there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. You've got to earn it. So you've got to decide exactly what you're willing to give in order to get it. For me, in order to get into my career where I worked in telecommunications for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory for over 30 years, my price was 8 years of study, of diligence, of discipline. And discipline is such an important word. The next thing another thing that you want to write on that goal card is your decision as to what date that you want to have your goal completed by. When do you want to have this by? And this isn't a date that if you miss, I want you to beat yourself up about, because you can think, I don't know, one of my favorite examples of this is, well, how long does it take to have a baby? 9 months. How long does it take for an elephant to have a baby? 7 years, I think it is. How long does it take for an ear of corn to be grown? It's only 3 months. But you know what? If you think of all of that, all of those different cases and circumstances, think back thousands of years ago. A caveman didn't know how long it was going to take to have a baby. He didn't know what it was going to be. Just like your idea of what you want most, you don't necessarily know how long it's going to take you, and it's okay. Set a date. Push yourself towards that date. If you don't make it, just set a new date. Your goal does not change. How you get there and how long you get there might change. That reminds me, earlier I was talking about know what you want, get a plan, get into action. When I think of those last two things, it reminds me of my college English teacher. She would say, there's no such thing as writing. There's only rewriting. So as you're working towards your goal, you've got your plan, and maybe that plan only gets you so far, and then you need to replan to get you to your ultimate goal. So you plan, you act, you learn. If that plan's not going to get you all the way there, you replan, you act, you learn, you replan, you act, you learn, you get your goal. You get your goal. And it's such a beautiful thing. The next thing, write down your action plan and then get started. The fifth thing, write down your goal details. What does it look like at the end? Pretend to, for me, it was the getting the degree so I could get the job. I would see in my mind what I was doing in my job. when my goal was complete, what exactly does it look like? Exactly what does it look like? And then the goal details in your goal, look at them every day. Look at your plan every day. You know, we're coming up to the end of the year. All of us are in some kind of a business, whether we're working for ourselves or whether we're working for somebody else. Do you want to excel? Do you want to really be the best you can be at that so that you can be rewarded commensurately? Because the universe will give you, whether it's from that employer or somebody else, the universe, God will give you what you want
All
if you
right.
earn it.
Thank you so much. Listen, I want to just remind everybody that we are talking about how do you tap into your brain, and what Gary is describing in great detail, which is in the book, is how you tap into your brain to give you your desire. Galen, if
Yes. One of the things I'm curious about, Gary. Your passion, your depth of knowledge is obvious. It's on display. I'm curious, how do you tap into the mastermind? How do you leverage others? What role does that play in the success that you're having?
Huge, absolutely huge, Galen. And I'm so glad you bring the concept up, because where do ideas come from? We're talking about the brain, right? One of the first roles that I had at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was I worked on very large antennas. So if I may, I'll just show a picture of one of these antennas. This is 70 meters from this side of the antenna to this side of the antenna. And to give you a little bit of a context, way down here, you see that little pickup truck? That's a 2-ton Chevy Dually pickup truck. So have you guys all seen the Rose Bowl football game on New Year's Day? You know how big the Rose Bowl is, right? If you were to pick up this antenna, if you could, and you set it down in the Rose Bowl stadium, it fills it. It fills it. And guess what? The brain is a physical tool that allows us to receive, and it allows us to transmit, and it allows us to be one to get ideas. Now, it's exactly what you guys were just asking about. Where do we get our ideas? Well, number one was infinite intelligence. Infinite is how Napoleon Hill would describe me personally. I believe that God will send me an idea. And I can tell you, when I was sitting next to this antenna in my early career, I got downloads. The second place is from other minds. And so the mastermind is so critical. You share any kind of a problem, you share any kind of want, so you'd be sharing your goal with other people. And we're not talking just about a meeting or a conference, but you share it with people that are on your side, that want to see you win. And it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily all in the same business. It was Thomas Edison, Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill used to have his invisible counselors. Now, they don't have to be invisible, but Hill, he had his invisible counselors. Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Paine, where he could download from these minds tremendous ideas that would help him towards his goal, that would help him figure out, how do I get my goal? How do I write up my plan? What should go into my plan? And just so critical to be able to have these people in your life, whether they're with us still or not, to be able to advance ourselves towards our goals.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna turn to one of my mastermind partners, Dr. Peter. What thoughts or questions do you have?
Yes, I'm just actually just sitting back here, just listening to the stories and the the detail from you there, Gary. Gary, especially as it relates to the brain, you know, your career has been phenomenal. The pivot over to NASA. As you look back, and this is going to be for someone out there who's listening and really saying, you know, well, here's where I am. Gary, if you had to do it all over again, if you would do it differently, or maybe you would do it the same, especially as it relates to the brain, what do you think you would do differently, or how would you shift in order to accomplish phenomenal goals and phenomenal dreams? What comes to mind?
I wish I had started earlier.
Mm.
I wish I had known what I wanted earlier. When I was effectively a fresh out and first hired by NASA, I was 10 years older than all of my peers,
Mm.
the fresh outs, the fresh out peers.
Right.
And on one hand, like in everything, that there's a balance. I wish I'd have started much sooner, and at the same time, because I had not the equivalent benefit, man, was I on fire to do well. Man, and I tell you, it caused me to work with some of the greatest people. I was so blessed with the people I got to work with, and ultimately allowing me to be on spacecraft launch teams.
Wow.
So there I am in front of the Mars Pathfinder spacecraft 30 days before launch. This piece here is the final rocket stage, and from this brown line up, that's the spacecraft. And it was just such a blessing.
You know, Gary, but it's also screaming to me that it's never too late.
It's never too late.
It's never too late to go after your dream. So yeah, you might have wished you started earlier, but you started when you started and you were still able to accomplish and achieve some of those, your wildest dreams, right? And that's what I'm also hearing from you as well.
Absolutely. And you can see it everywhere. Harlan Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken,
Mhm.
he didn't start till his mid-60s. He was already retired, getting a small Social Security stipend, and ultimately saying, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm going to go do something else. And honestly, there have been many, many stories of just that. And it's never too late. It's never too late to excel. It's never too late to decide what you want, commit to it, and go get it.
And McNeil, it's never too late to go on a long cruise, huh?
There you go.
Come on off of mute there, Ann McNeil.
No, I was on mute on purpose. Oh my goodness. I don't know if we have a moment to talk about this idea of uh, this the stages of this conscious competence. And Gary, we didn't talk about this before, but and I'm gonna just take a limb here. Can you speak to, and I know we're getting ready to go for a break, and we want to encourage everybody, please, if you have any questions or comments on YouTube, please put them in the chat. We would love to have your questions for Gary or any of us, because we want this to be a dialogue, not a monologue with all of you. And we really thank you for chiming in. Remember to please subscribe to the YouTube. Gary, how familiar are you with the four stages of this competence? You know, conscious competence, and unconscious competence, conscious, you know, all of that. Are you familiar enough with that? Because you used that when you came into this realization, if you will. If you are, we can discuss it. If you're not, I have another question.
Steps. I fear I'm unfamiliar with that. Although I feel like so much of it is about imprinting your definite major purpose into your subconscious mind, using so many of Napoleon's principles, whether it's controlled attention, accurate thinking, having a positive mental attitude, and applying your faith mixed with lots of emotion.
Well, let me just mention here when you talked about becoming competent, if you will, in terms of this information, there is in psychology 4 stages, and this is for all of us to just be aware of the conscious competence. And this is a learning model. You can research it and you can study it. But I think it's so critical for all of us because oftentimes we don't really realize that there's an area of our life where we actually are not aware of certain things that exist. And I'll use the one about this. We often hear about the iceberg, right? You see the tip of the iceberg, but we're not aware of all that's up underneath the water. If you can just picture that in your mind, right? To me, the brain and our minds are like that. I received a call from my brother who had a really bad fall. And he was fishing, stepped back, and fell 10 feet on his back. Now we know that's going to be sore. You're going to be sore from that. But he went to the hospital, of course. They sent him home, say, oh, you just bruised. By the time I heard about it a week late, because he didn't want to tell me, I said, go back to the hospital. I'm going to meet you there. All right. Went back to the hospital, met him there. And they tested him, did all the x-rays. And he said, yeah, you're going to be okay. It's just some bruises. I didn't feel good in my spirit. There were things that we were conscious about, but there were certain things we were unaware of. Yesterday, I visited him. They found that he had masses in his brain. Now, what's my point in sharing this here? Your brain and the infinite intelligence would tell you intuitively, we would call it gut, that there's something impending. And this is a part of many of these principles. This morning, in preparation for this podcast, as I'm out walking, I realized first he's upset he's carrying on, but I am, like Gary and many of us, I am a believer. I'm a Christian. So I'm saying to God, there's got to be more here. What is it? And this morning I realized if he had not had the fall, they would not have found the masses in his brain because of the tests. And I'm saying that to share with all of us. There's so much to learn, and there's so much here. That's like an onion we just keep unpeeling on. But you've got to go inside in quiet time. You've got to be willing to do the inner work in these principles like Gary shared today. You have got to be responsible for your own thoughts and your thinking. And you've got to be responsible for your voice. Because there are very few people that will hear me. They'll hear Gary. They'll hear, I started to say Wyman. Yes, you too, Wyman. They'll hear Peter and they'll hear Galen. But they will not hear us. They'll only hear your voice. And what I really want to share before we wrap up, because I just feel this energy and so passionate about this whole idea about the brain. We study the body. We study so many things. But how often do we really get off the treadmill of life and study this brain, the conscious and unconscious, subconscious mind, all whatever you want to call it, many minds, one mind, whatever works for you? I just really want to just impart upon all of us. There are people who will only hear your voice. That's my point here. They're not going to hear any of us. And if you don't elevate your voice and work on your inner self, that voice will go voiceless. How many people will you hurt or harm by not sharing your own voice, your own stories, and really begin to focus on what is important to you? I love reading Emerson. I have a book called Emerson Essays, and I've been in it maybe about 10 years. I can only do maybe a page a week sometimes. But there's something he said about the whole course. See if I can remember it. It's a quote. He says, the whole course of things come to teach us faith. We must only obey. That's all we're asked to do by the Spirit, God, Christ, whoever it is you worship. We're asked to obey, but there's guidance for each of us. And this is the key for me. By only listening, we shall hear the right word. By only listening. When do you listen to your brain and the spirit and your gut and whatever it has to say to you? So, Galen, Peter, Gary, we're going to go ahead and plan to wrap up. I am just so honored. And Gary, we say this sometimes to our guests. We've got to have you back because I don't think we began to scratch the surface of this subject and your energy. So we're going to go around and talk about this annual meeting for our lives that we have. It is such a powerful event, Gary, that we host every year. But before we do that, I'm going to just ask you, Gary, if there's anything in particular you would like to share once we talk about the annual meeting, because I really want to encourage all of our listeners to connect with you in whatever way they can to be able to get a little bit more of your energy, your information, and what you have to share. So if we can have Galen to share his thoughts about the annual meeting. Peter is going to share the website. We're going to talk about why is it important for you, like Napoleon Hill says, annually do self-inventory on yourself. And this is our self-inventory opportunity for each of us to come together and share. So, Galen, any thoughts about that annual meeting?
Yeah, oh my gosh, the annual meeting, one of the things I say quite often is I'm brilliant inside my head. Inside my head, everything makes sense, everything connects, everything is on track. There's something about when I get what's inside my head out on paper that I start seeing the disconnect. It's when I start sharing what's in my head with other people, I start seeing, hey, there's opportunities to tweak. That's exactly what this is. This is an opportunity for you to get together with like-minded people in Boca Raton, where you're going to share your life. You have to bring your life in writing. You have to talk about what you've done over the past 364 days, and then talk about your goals for the next 366 days. And you have to put it in writing. And you'll see that you've got all, people of all ages, all gender. There's some kids in there. Don't sleep on those kids because those kids will ask you questions about your plans that you didn't think were important, but to them they really dig in. This is your opportunity to really reflect on what are you trying to do? What are you trying to be intentional about in your life? And I encourage everyone to make this part of your annual inventory. Um, Boca Raton, January 3rd and 4th. Be sure to subscribe. Right now, there's a holiday special going on. Oh my gosh, there's an opportunity for you to save a little money, but definitely make this part of your plan. Dr. Peter, back to you.
Yeah, good stuff. We're getting ready to land this plane, so I'm excited. A lot of gems and a lot of insights from you there, Gary. Thank you so much for being a part today. Your journey was or is phenomenal. I will say that for sure. And I thank you so much for sharing that with us. And again, as you even mentioned, it's never too early, it's never too late to dive on into use your more of your brain power each and every day. And I thank you for that. I thank you for the insights you provided for us. Hey, folks, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. Find me at shiftyourmindset.com or almost on any social media platform. Look forward to chatting with you. And if you're ready to take your career to the next level, the Own Your Career Challenge is the place for you. I'll put the link in the chat. Looking forward to having you with us in 2025. Who am I going to next? Ann McNeil?
I want to come back to Gary. I put something in the chat to you, Peter, but I want to come back to Gary and Gary, oh my goodness. I I have notes, Gary. You share so many aha moments for me. I'm not gonna read them all, but I will say one of my favorites is the 6 steps. The 6 steps I've built 5 businesses from those 6 steps, Gary. Yes, 5 different businesses from that one page in the book, starting with knowing what you want. I want to have you share any, as we prepare, like Peter said, to land this plane. Could you just share with us any thoughts that you have and anything that you'd like to share where people can connect with you? Because we really do want to honor you because you have really blessed us today. And especially, I keep coming back to the fact that you're on the West Coast. So it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and the level of energy that you are expresses to all of us your excitement about this philosophy. So, any closing comments you have and anything you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, you mentioned my enthusiasm for the work. I I am absolutely enthusiastic about the ideas in Think and Grow Rich and throughout all of Napoleon Hill's writings. There are so many, whether it's the science of personal achievement or outwitting the devil or whatever content that Hill provides. It's absolutely fabulous, and the more that anyone can read, study, digest, meditate upon. In fact, one of my favorite questions that I love asking my clients is that at the beginning of the desire chapter, in the very first paragraph, you know, Edwin C. Barnes, he's still a tramp, and he's getting ready to run on and jump onto a freight train to kind of like a hobo to get to where Thomas Edison is. But he had the thoughts of a king, and I would like each of you out there, think about what are the thoughts of a king, and what thoughts of a king would serve you. And you can think about it in so many different contexts, from lifestyle to protection of the crown, to protection of the family, to protection of the community, of the nation. What are the thoughts of a king? And it's just one little bit, one little question that can become so expansive that I feel represents an example of how much that you can meditate on each and every sentence in this material. Another thing that I'd love to share with your group is if you choose, there's a Think and Grow Rich movie. And if you choose to, check it out. It shows the principles so well, not only from Think and Grow Rich, but from Think and Grow Rich, a Latino choice, Think and Grow Rich, so many opportunities. There's my website being shown. The website is yourgreatestsuccess.com. And when you click to purchase, go ahead and enter the coupon code GROW15, and you can get another $15 off the price. So with that, I thank you so much. It's been such a blessing, Ann, Galen, Peter, Dr. Peter. It's been, I so enjoy being with you. How do they like minds? It's such a blessing to be around beautiful people with beautiful energy, and the so filled and just sated with the principles. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Oh, I love that. Sated with the principles. Can somebody let's hashtag that. Why? There's another part of that word, derivative of that word. I was waiting to see where you were gonna go with it. We take the end and keep that together. Listen, everyone, Galen, I just want to just make sure that you did tell everybody how to connect with you. Dr. Peter did also. Please put that information in the chat. We want to encourage everyone, please connect with our co-hosts. And please, Gary Glass, we will come back to you because I think that it's critically important that we have you come back and share in this principle. We are at the end of the year. which means that we are, it's 12 months, 13 principles. So during the end of the year, even though the principal chapters are short, they're very powerful and they're connected to each other in a powerful way. So we will next month go to the next principle, which is the sixth sense. And when you think about your brain and the sixth sense and the gut and intuition and all of these, please plan to join us every single Saturday. And like Galen likes to remind us, please remember to click the bell. I've chosen today to share with everyone how you can connect with us. You can connect with me by texting the number 59925. And in the chat, just put the word and. That's 59925. In the chat, put the word and. And what Gary talked about, desire, what is it that you want? Those 6 steps that Napoleon Hill talks about, you'll get those back from me. But I've elected today because the importance of the holiday special that we have a special video just giving some highlights about our annual meeting uh, and why it is so important that you join us with your family. So Peter is going to play that as we exit, and then we're going to ask everybody to have a wonderful day, what's left of it, after you watch this video. All right. And at the very end of it, we're going to say good day. And so we're going to all turn our videos off and ask you to enjoy this video. Thank you.
This process has changed my relationships, all of them in 360, because it's changed me. It changed who I am. One of the biggest things that we keep calling it a process, we're talking about masterminding, but what this is you sitting with self, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, if I moved and removed everything that I think I can't do, or whatever the case may be, and I was able to be anything I wanted to be in the world, what would that vision look like?
For Anne, the value, and because she follows Think and Grow Rich principles, there's a beauty and accountability. There's a lifting and a rising up, because it's raising the standard, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. And I think that's what attracted me towards wanting to learn about IMA, like what being more curious about, well, what is that? What's the value in that?